consistently at least once a day. It's mostly more than that. Every morning they are here and they are meeting, and they've just done an excellent job. So for everyone that's been a part of the emergency response group, I just want to sincerely thank you. Also, our communications team at the city has done a fantastic job of pushing out new information, and as you can imagine, it's been really unbelievable in the amount of information that is flowing. As decisions are being made at our level, all of a sudden decisions are being made at the provincial level and at the federal level, and we are constantly having to respond to these changes. So I just want to point out that our communications department has been top-notch. And then lastly, for what we're all seeing and experiencing today, I really want to thank the clerks and IT as well for being able to get this up and running so quickly and smoothly so that we can continue the business of the city. Next, I'd really like to make sure that I focus on thanking our frontline health services within the community, whether that be at the assessment center, public health, the hospital, all other health organizations. I just really want to thank you for what you've done in preparation as this unfortunate virus has entered our society, but what you're doing day in and day out. And on behalf of the city, I really want to thank all of the frontline health professionals that are doing their job for our community. So thank you very, very much. And also, I'd like to thank the amount of people and agencies that have really wrapped around trying to help with the most vulnerable and homeless population within our city. That's always a struggle and something that's always on the front of mind, but you can imagine how elevated that has become during this crisis, and the amount of people that have really stepped up, both from an agency point of view and from the government point of view. It has been excellent, and so thank you very much for all the work that you are doing. And speaking of government, I do want to recognize both the provincial and the federal government for also moving swiftly. We've even had more announcements today. They seem to be coming every day with changes that are happening. And you can tell that everyone, no matter what party that they are in, they are all working together for the health and safety of every Canadian. And so I just want to, on behalf of the council and the city of Guelph, thank the upper levels of government, including our MP and including our MPP as well, for the work that they are doing. I'm almost done. My last one is to thank the citizens of Guelph. There has been just an amazing outpouring of support that I've seen online, including a lot of entrepreneurial and businesses and ideas that have come forward to help everyone within the city, both from being led from citizens and from businesses as well. We can't thank you enough for everything that you're doing to try to help our fellow neighbors and citizens in the city, but also with the economy and trying to make sure that we're supporting businesses, especially those small to medium-sized businesses that rely so much on local purchases, even not during a crisis. So thank you very much to everyone, including the Chamber of Commerce, that has really stepped up at this time. With that, those are my thank yous. I really wanted to take the time to make sure I publicly said that at the beginning of our meeting. And I want to, at this time, move it over to our CAO, who is going to have some words for us as well, more from an internal perspective.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, councillors. And as you're aware, we have made many decisions in the last 12 days as this pandemic has certainly reached our shores. And you heard the Mayor reference your EOC group that meets every morning to assess the situation, and that's our emergency control group. It's our emergency operations center. The EOC that's the acronym for that, and that's made up of and I know you know who they are, but I just want to acknowledge who they are: Dave Alloway, Colleen Clack, Susan O'Toole, Steve Dewar, Trevor Lee, Lester Tang, Gord Colby, Paul Martin, Kate Wagler, Keely Dedman, Stacey Hare, Laura Musso, Steve Kraft, and Nicola Mercer. That's the folks that come together just at that senior level just to assess the situation. And quite honestly, I can't say enough good things about the cooperation that's happened in these extraordinary times. And that cooperation is between departments, it's between agencies such as Guelph Police Services, Guelph Public Library, Public Health. It's our EMS crews when they arrive at the emergency room at the hospital. The coordination and collaboration is outstanding. So in trying times, people's true mettle comes to the surface, and your city staff have risen to that occasion. And as we've changed service levels and changed services, out to the community. Quite frankly, it's been inspiring to watch the staff at all levels of the organization, Mr. Mayor, as you've mentioned, but all levels, all levels of the organization overcoming obstacles and putting in place changes with the community and their colleagues in mind with compassion. And that's been an important part of it. It's relatively easy to make service level changes, but it's a lot more difficult to do it with compassion. And that's been a true sense of the human spirit coming through in your staff. And so that we just know that we need to look out for one another, and your staff have embraced that. I'm sure it's happening across the province and the country, quite frankly, but we work here in Guelph, and it fills me with great pride, the effort put forth by your focused, dedicated, and amazing City of Guelph staff. So Council, through your collective leadership, we appreciate you having our backs, and we've got yours in these trying times. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
And thank you very, very much. And I think it's a good way to start our meeting that way, with thanks. So thank you very much to everyone. Okay, moving right along. So the first one that we need to do, Council, is to look at the recommendation of the procedural changes that have come down from the provincial government that is now going to be included within our own procedural bylaw to allow us to continue to do the work that we're doing in the technology way that we are right now. So can I look to somebody to please move this recommendation? Okay, I saw Councillor, I think I did the disclosure, didn't I? Yeah, sorry. I was just asked if I did the disclosure, but I did. Yep. Roll back the film, clerk. So I saw Councillor Billings' hand go up as moving the procedural changes, and thank you, Councillor Piper. I see your hand go up for seconding the changes that are required at this time. Before I call the vote, is there any questions on the procedural bylaw changes, or can I call the vote? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. So at this time, I'd like you to please hold your hand up if you are in favor. Okay, that is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we have the consent agenda. And may I just ask, does anyone want to pull the Smart Cities Challenge update and the confirmation of the Advisory Board of Management governance structure? Seeing none. And what about the Dolime Community Engagement? Seeing none. The Water Services Annual Summary Report? Seeing none. Can I at least have us move for those ones? Thank you, Councillor Hoffman, and seconded by Councillor Gibson. Anything further on those? Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor O'Rourke, did you have a question on that?
No, just to say, Mayor Guthrie, that if somebody's looking for a great read, that Water Services Annual Report really shows the fantastic work that our folks do to keep the water safe.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for saying that. Seeing nothing else, if I could please have a show of hands for the affirmative to vote for that. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the first one here, number 5, Chief Administrative Officer Delegated Authority. Could I at least see someone move this at this time, just to get it on the floor? Councillor Downer, seconded by Councillor Alt. Thank you. Is there any questions about that at this time? Seeing none, if you're in the affirmative, please raise your hand. Thank you, that's unanimous. And now I'm going to go to the fiscal relief measures. I know Councillor Hoffland, I believe you wanted to move that, and seconded by Councillor O'Rourke. But you also had a question on that one. So now that it's on the floor, I'll just go to you, Councillor Hoffland. Oh, is she muted?
So
Oh, there we go.
I did move the recommendation, but I would also like to have staff speak to the highlights of the fiscal relief measures. And I would also like to draw to your attention, Mayor Guthrie, that there were recommendations in the revised council memo, and I'm happy to approve those.
Thank you. Let me go to staff just to talk about the highlights first, and then Councillor Alt, I did recognize you for either a question or comment, okay? So who would like to speak to this? I'll go to our CFO, Tara.
So thank you, Mayor Guthrie. The highlights in the memo were meant to provide an overview of the fiscal impact to date or to expected by the end of April. As well, then we've also extended those impacts to the end of May in the memo. We recognize and want to support businesses and the community during this period. However, we do want it to be clear that those do have fiscal impacts to our cash flow and to our liquidity. And so we feel that what's been put forward is a good balance as we start to move forward through this period. And so we'll be monitoring, we'll be reporting back to council through the period as things move along, and we'll be keeping our eye on what's going on in the industry and trying to be responsive as possible through these next months.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Guthrie. Again, Councillor Hoffman speaking. I just wanted to be crystal clear for our residents that in the third clause, it says providing property tax relief to business and residences. And I want folks to understand that we're not relieving their taxes, but we're putting measures in place to help with their postponement or waiving of fees. I want to be very clear for our constituents.
Let me just have Tara reaffirm your commentary there, Councillor Hoffman, so I'll go back to our CFO.
So through you, Mayor Guthrie, that is correct. We will still be issuing property tax bills for the next deadline date, which is April 30th. But we will be providing a waiver of the interest and penalties that would then be applied on May 1st if they were not paid by April 30th. So that should give the flexibility for those that need to take more time to have that flexibility. We also, in this, there'll be, in terms of your pre-authorized payment plans, you can contact tax@guelph.ca and have those payment plans shifted through later into the year, so that will also provide relief. But there needs to be that written notice provided to our tax team in advance so that we can process those before the withdrawal date.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
very
back
much,
over to you.
Ms. Baker.
Back over to you, Councillor Hoffman. Is that okay for your questions and comments?
Yes, thank you. I just want everyone to be very clear on this information, and I appreciate the clarity, Ms. Baker. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Councillor Alt right now.
The bottom to Councillor Piper for identifying that I was at the bottom of the screen. I didn't realize that. A quick question for Ms. Baker, and I've talked to her earlier about this. The fiscal impact of this situation is something that I think that people are probably concerned about. And I was wondering if you could clarify the city's position vis-a-vis, can we incur a debt or incur a deficit? And what is the difference between incurring that and planning for one?
Okay, go ahead, Tara. And just to let you know, I did see Councillor Gibson's hand go up, so I recognize you after this. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, earlier you did approve some delegated authority to the CAO to manage through the fiscal impacts through this period. However, yes, in terms of the Municipal Act, a municipality can have a deficit in any given year. It's our job to then account for that deficit and disclose or use reserves and reserve funds to offset or to account for that deficit. And so as we move through this year, those will be the conversations that we have with council about the projections of this period and if we are going to have a deficit. But at the same time, we will be managing the expenditures and the revenues as we move through the year.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Alt.
Thank you very much. I think it's clear that we'll be monitoring the situation and we will have reports as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Gibson. Just make sure you're unmuted, okay?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. A question that just a follow-up question that I had with our Deputy CEO of Public Services today, Colleen Clack. I'm not sure if she's on the line. Is she in the room? Yep, great. So I prepped Colleen for this question. So it's just the status of transit. With the new news today from the province that we don't want people outside of going to work at a grocery store or going for a medical appointment. We actually don't want our general public out using transit. And I just wanted to get a status of our executives' thoughts on transit. What's the near-term, short-term thoughts on how we're going to discourage people from unfortunately using the service, because we don't want people out and about in public spaces. If you're not taking a walk in a park or going to work at a grocery store or going to work at a manufacturer that's developing some critical equipment, we actually want you to shelter in place at home, right? So what is the executive's thoughts on transit, given the announcements from the province today?
So I'll just go over to our Deputy CAO, Colleen Clack.
Thank you. So I guess first in response, we're awaiting the province's definition of what is classified as essential, and that we expect to have out either later this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, and that will certainly guide our decision making. Even without the province's announcement today, we've certainly been discussing how to discourage ridership for people who do not need to use transit. We want to retain our transit services for those who need it most, and so we're certainly appealing to the public. It's not for going out for rides around town. It's not for keeping your kids busy. We need to maintain our limited transit service for those mobility clients who may need to get to their dialysis appointments, or for, as Councillor Gibson said, those people who are in critical manufacturing jobs and need to get to work. As we move through this, we have seen a significant drop in our transit ridership, and so we will continue to monitor our routes, and if there are routes that we can scale back to further discourage people, but still make sure that we are getting transit to those essential locations in the city, we will continue, regardless of the province's clarification on essential, we will continue to monitor our transit routes, and wherever possible, scale down the service to any non-essential travel, but still make sure that we are providing it for those who do desperately still need it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That's wise words.
Seeing nothing further, may I please, it's already been moved and seconded, so I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that's unanimous. Thank you. And that leads us to the bylaws. Councillor Alt, I'm looking to you to please move the bylaws.
Thank you, Mayor Guthrie. I move the resolution to adopt the bylaws 2020-20479 to 2020-20480 and 2020-20487 to 2020-20488 are hereby passed. I am looking for a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Billings.
Yep, thank you very much. Anything on those at all before I call the vote? Seeing none, by show of hands, please raise your hands if you affirm. And that's unanimous. And with that, our council and many others has a message for our staff and for our community. Before I call adjournment, would everyone like to hold that up? Awesome. Thank you very much. We appreciate everyone. And just as a personal note for me before adjournment, thank you very much to my council colleagues. You've been rock solid this whole last week. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to move to adjourn. Can someone please move it for us? Councillor Alt, seconded by Councillor Gibson. All in favor to adjourn, let me see your hands. And that's passed. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for joining us, Guelph, and anybody else that's been joining us for today. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Great job, everyone.
Enjoy Stingray music free on your mobile.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Linda Ockwell-Jenner and Steve Bentley invite local entrepreneurs and small business experts to share their stories of success in small business. The Small Business Show, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
Councillor Galvez-Luck, I mean.
Hi, I think I'm here now.
Okay,
Can you
great.
hear me?
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Still waiting for councillors Gazzola, Ioannidis, and Schneider.
Barry, I'm sending the link to Councillor Gazzola now.
Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Gazzola. Still waiting for councillors Ioannidis and Schneider. Can someone resend the link to them and I'll try calling Councillor Ioannidis again?
I can do that, Mayor.
And Jeff, this is Dan. I think the echo is caused by your microphone being unmuted. Can it be muted or will that stop the live feed?
You're muted, Barry.
No, I realize. Thanks, Councillor Davey. Just on the line with Councillor Ioannidis, trying to make sure he's on.
Members of council, I just want to let you know that we are live streaming currently.
That's correct. I'm just on the phone with him and we're trying to get him connected.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll start our council meeting in 1 minute. Mr. Bunn, I don't have a cheat sheet today, but I presume I'm just going to, at the end of council, ask for the bylaws, ask for three readings of the bylaws, and that's it.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, council, and to those of you from the community who are online tonight watching our first ever virtual meeting of Kitchener City Council. As you know, we're convening this evening because even under these extremely challenging circumstances, decisions still need to be made by council to move critical city business and services forward. It's unusual, to say the least, to be doing so virtually from the comfort of our own homes or our office, but we continue to take every precaution to ensure the safety of our community. We find ourselves collectively in unprecedented circumstances tonight. We are continuing to witness the methodical spread of the COVID-19 pandemic through countries around the world, including Canada. As a nation, we have prepared at all levels of government, and as individuals and communities, we're taking unprecedented steps to counter the emerging pandemic. I know some of these measures may seem drastic, but it's never been truer that each of us is playing an important part in ensuring that we can help stop the spread. While the physical safety and well-being of our residents and staff is always the city's utmost priority, we're also keenly aware that financial and economic safety is a top priority for our residents and businesses. With the financial impact already being felt across all economic sectors, resulting in significant layoffs or reduced hours for the community's workforce and our businesses, we've seen the provincial and federal government step up in recent days to announce financial aid programs to support Canadians and businesses. It's vital now that local municipalities also consider doing what they can, too, in this regard. Tonight, one of the things Kitchener City Council will consider are short and long-term measures to help ease the financial burden for our residents and businesses. Many thanks to the staff task force who has worked tirelessly over the past few days to bring these recommendations forward for City Council's consideration this evening. On behalf of Council, I also want to thank the community for your incredible response and your incredible creativity, goodness, and patience under these very difficult circumstances. We also owe our gratitude to our first responders, all of our doctors, nurses, healthcare and mental health professionals, our EMS, fire and police personnel, all those working with our vulnerable populations, and to those of you on the front lines each day in our grocery stores, our pharmacies, cooking takeout food in our restaurants, and those responsible for facilities maintenance and many other critical services. You are keeping our city and our world running right now, and we can't thank you enough. Last but not least, as we begin this meeting, I extend our collective heartfelt thanks and gratitude to our city staff, many of whom also remain on the front lines, ensuring the continued seamless delivery of the critical services our community counts on each day. You make all of us on City Council proud. And with that, Council, I will now move into item number 3 on this special Council agenda, and that's our pandemic response update. And I turn to our Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Dan Chapman, to provide his update.
Thank you very much, Mayor Verbanovic, and good evening, Council. Over the past several weeks, the City of Kitchener has been working closely with all area municipalities and the public health experts of the region of Waterloo to coordinate our response to this rapidly evolving pandemic and to slow the spread of the virus here in our community. Members of City Council can be confident that we have a robust emergency management framework and pandemic plan in place, which we are now executing. Our Emergency Operations Center management team, which is made up of the city's corporate leadership team, emergency management personnel, and staff from other key functions, is holding 1 and 2 conference calls per day. These calls allow staff to consider and resolve challenges quickly, plan for decisions that need to be made in the days and weeks ahead, and coordinate the work of all staff who are engaged in our response to this pandemic. I'd like to take a moment to highlight 4 specific areas that we have been focused on in recent weeks. First, along with all area municipalities, we have closed all city facilities to public access, as well as our playgrounds and skateboard parks. These facility closures also meant canceling all public meetings, facility rentals, and previously planned programs. Second, in support of the Medical Officer of Health's firm direction on the need to practice social distancing, city staff were directed to work from home unless they are required to report to the workplace to provide critical municipal services. Third, we've actively engaged with the region's Community Support Control Group, which is made up of 17 government and community organizations, as it provides additional assistance for the most vulnerable members of our community, including those that are homeless. And finally, we've engaged with all area municipalities, as well as key community organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, Communitech, and the Waterloo Economic Development Corporation to identify measures to mitigate the financial impacts of this pandemic to our residents, our workforce, and our businesses. Later this evening, City Council will consider our early recommendations in this regard. But it's important to note and to recognize that all this work is happening while we are still continuing to maintain critical services to the community. Council, in addition to responding to the short-term needs of our community, we're also looking ahead and planning for the medium and long term. Our Emergency Operations Center management team will continue to meet frequently in order to continually reassess the changing impacts of COVID-19, react to new directions from other levels of government, and develop action plans for multiple scenarios for the weeks ahead. As we continue to respond to this pandemic, we will continue to make the safety and well-being of our citizens and our employees our top priority. We will continue to make decisions as quickly as necessary, and we will continue to communicate those decisions on a regular basis. I'd like to thank all members of Council for your leadership, for your support, and for your understanding through these challenging times. It has meant a lot to me personally, and I know for all of staff as well. And in closing, on behalf of the corporate leadership team, I want to sincerely thank all of our staff for their incredible work over these past few weeks. They've devoted their full energy and attention to addressing this challenge head-on, and I'm very proud of their dedication to serving the community in these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. I will go through now, Mr. Chapman, are you intending to take any questions, or are we moving on to item number 5?
I think it was the intention to move on to the discussion items now, starting with item number 5.
Okay, thank you. And as noted in the agenda, item number 4, the housekeeping update wasn't necessary, so that item has been withdrawn. And so we're now moving on to item number 5, the financial and economic supports for both residents and business. And if I can, I'm not sure who's going to bring that forward. Is Mr. Bloom bringing that forward?
Yes, he has some brief remarks, Council.
Okay. Mr. Bloom?
Corey, you're on mute. You may need to unmute your microphone.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, and to echo a few comments that have already been made today. It goes without saying that we are in unprecedented times, and the same is true for our economy. Impacts have been sudden, and as such, we knew we needed to provide council with immediate options to support our residents and our businesses. I want to express my thanks to the many city staff and partners throughout our community who came together over a very short period of time to produce the comprehensive plan that's in front of you. We know that the federal and provincial governments will lead our economic recovery through major financial programs. And while municipalities play a complementary and supportive role, it is important for us to show a strong message and send a strong message to our residents, our workforce, and our businesses that we are here to support them through this economic challenging time. What we've provided in the report are a series of actions for council to consider. I'll just generalize the impact that they can have. In one frame, there are financial options that council can put in place to help support our local residents and businesses. There are a set of actions that are really that administratively city staff can carry out over the next week to 2 months to continue to support our businesses. And lastly, we will work closely with all of our regional partners to work on long-term recovery plans and determine, once we have a better clarity on the federal and provincial programs, where there may be gaps and opportunities for local municipalities to play an even further role in supporting our businesses. So with that, I would direct council's attention to pages 3 and 4 of this staff report for the list of actions, and I'm prepared to answer any questions they may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bloom. And so I will read out the recommendation that's in front of us. And I will note that it is it's being moved by Councillors Davey and seconded by Councillor Gazzola, the chair and vice chair of our Finance and Corporate Services Committee. And the recommendation reads, 1, as part of a municipal financial and economic recovery response to COVID-19 in support of residents, the workforce and local businesses who've been impacted by COVID-19, that the city initiate the following. A, implementation of the early economic support plan for residents and businesses as outlined in report DSD-20-064. B, in partnership with regional business development and workforce organizations, mobilization of working groups to identify interventions to support specific sectors of our economy. And C, development of a community financial support and recovery plan for residents and businesses. 2, that the city provide support to residents and businesses for 60 days by A, waiving penalties and interest on property taxes for the months of April and May 2020. B, waiving late payment charges on utility bills and miscellaneous receivable invoices for the months of April and May 2020. C, suspending utility disconnection and collection activities until May 31st, 2020. And D, waiving non-sufficient fund NSF fees charges by the city on customer accounts for the months of April and May 2020. And 3, that Kitchener City Council request the Minister of Energy direct the Ontario Energy Board to set all time of use rates for weekdays at the off-peak rate for the next 60 days or the period of the provincial public health emergency to provide relief, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Energy, the Premier, Waterloo Region's MPPs, and other Waterloo Region municipalities. And 4, that any necessary bylaws be enacted. And as I said, this is being moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Gazzola. And I'll just note that item 3, the motion to the OEB is pertaining to hydro activity or hydro charges, because that is the agency that sets hydro charges for Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro. So with that, I will go through council to ask staff any questions that they might have, beginning with Councillor Gazzola.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start off with the delay in charging interest and penalties. We're going to eliminate April and May, but what happens right now? What happens? We've still got a week or so in March. Are people going to be hit with charges at the end of March if they haven't been able to pay their bills?
Mr. Lautenbach?
So through the mayor, the intent would be we would be waiving any interest right now, even on utility bills, all the way until May 31st. The reason why the 2 months are specified is typically for taxes, we charge the interest at the beginning of the month. And so we thought it was relevant to indicate the 60 days, which is predominantly related to taxes. For utility bills, any due dates that would cross over that time, we would not be charging interest at this point if council approves the recommendation tonight.
Okay, and I wanted to make it clear that, we still have a week and a half left in March, that's not going to hurt anyone. I'd like to ask you just a ballpark figure, if you can, this will have an impact on us. Can you give us what that impact might be?
So through the mayor, the estimated impact for waiving penalty and interest is $700,000 until May 31st. So that is our projected or estimated impact at this point.
Thank you. On the hydro question, we are the owners of the hydro in Kitchener, and we share that with Wilmot. Do we have the power to change, make that change on our own, or do we have to? Is that something that somebody else controls?
So, Councillor Gazzola, I did speak with the CEO of the hydro utility on Friday, and these are all issues that are determined by the OEB. The Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro has to apply to the OEB, and so they have to make any changes. I can advise that the OEB has decided that across the board, in terms of all hydro utilities like Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, there will be no disconnections until, I believe it's July 31st, but I can confirm that date to council. They have, however, not taken any position on time of use yet. However, I do know that this is an issue that I have spoken both with the local MPP about, and others have as well with government. And we anticipate that there may be news coming later this week, hopefully, in that regard.
Okay, I urge you to follow up on that, because we're at a point in time where people are using their electricity to move about, and we need to get moving on that. The only other question I have, somewhere along the line, I read about things that we're going to do for our market vendors and for our parking customers, and that is that covered by this, or is that are those separate resolutions that we deal with?
I believe that's covered by this, but perhaps staff can confirm. Corey, you have to turn yourself back on.
Through the mayor, you're correct. Those are included in this report, and the estimated impacts are outlined in the financial implications section.
Yeah, could we briefly outline that for our, people that are viewing this as to what we're looking at in those areas?
Sure. Through the chair, the Kitchener market, we would anticipate a loss of about $50,000 per month. The parking enterprise generates up to $550,000 a month in revenues. So not all of that may be lost, but potentially if all of the facilities remain free, we would potentially lose $500,000 in revenue each year. And
if I can interrupt, I don't. I was more concerned if we could tell the people the impact on them as to what they'd be allowed to do or not to do during the next period.
So through the mayor, for the market, it would essentially be us waiving and the collection of any fees while the facility is closed. For those that have already paid fees to the end of March, those would be credited forward to once the building is reopened. And for parking customers, immediately for the 3-week duration that the facilities would be free, those fees would be rebated back to the customer. Following, there'll be another determination that will need to be made after April 6th. But what we've suggested is that any parking customer who wishes to put a freeze on their account because they don't expect to use their parking space, they can do so. They won't be charged, and they will have access to their space when they return to regular work.
Thank you very much. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Moving on to you, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to staff for their promptness in being able to put together electronic meetings such as this. I think it's we're responding in a timely manner to this crisis and being able to, take a decision on assistance towards our businesses and residents in the city of Kitchener. So I'm really pleased to see the breadth of different areas that we can assist in. I do have some question in around building permits and inspection to ensure that we provide confidence and continued support towards our construction development industry, which has been thriving in the last number of years. The last part of the report in that paragraph says the review of previously submitted site plan applications will also continue. Because our staff are working remotely in this time, can they not continue on with the new applications as well? And that would be towards taking applications for future committee of adjustment as well as site plan or even zoning change applications as well, so that we can continue giving the confidence towards our development community or residents as a whole that there's a sense of normalcy and business is still being carried on.
So I'm not sure if either Mr. Bloom or Mr. Reedman will answer that, but I will just note, Councillor Singh, that some of this will depend on the direction that came from the province today around closing down of all non-essential businesses. And so we're not sure where this will potentially fit on that list. But Mr. Bloom or Mr. Reedman, if you want to respond to Councillor Singh?
Yeah, through the mayor, I can respond to that. So staff are continuing to process site plan applications that have already been received. We are doing some planning work now to see what we can do in terms of bringing on new applications. So right now it's a physical copy that's received, and so we're looking through that process in our future planning work to see what level of service we can provide. And so we haven't fully determined that yet, but we are working through those issues right now.
Mr. Reedman, thank you for that answer. And my only concern, the reason why I raised it is, if it's a matter of 2 weeks, we can pause as we try to manage with the crisis, but there's a level of uncertainty how long this will proceed. And I just want to ensure that we start putting in place or looking at avenues that we can continue to support and carry on a level of business at City Hall remotely as much as we can. So thank you for that. The other question I have is towards the parking. It's good that we're trying to provide relief towards those that may have had, monthly permits. But realizing that this may end up being longer than just April 5th. Is this something that we could, as a subsidy, afford beyond April 5th? Or should we consider a wait and see approach and seeing what the extent of all this is so that we can retain a level of, ability to support beyond, again, to the most vulnerable of our society. So is it better to wait than to support that as well now? And I'm talking about the parking only right now.
So through the mayor, at this point, we've only made a commitment to rebate until April 6th, and then we will make a subsequent decision after that. And a lot will hinge on how close we are to returning to normal operations in terms of businesses returning downtown and parking patrons reusing their space. So at this point, I think what you're suggesting is in line with what we suggested is at this point, it's 3 weeks plus the ability for parking customers to freeze their accounts if they wish, and we'll make a future determination later.
Okay, and for ensuring that we're giving relief to our utility ratepayers, that we won't be cutting anyone off. Is this something within the report that ensures that we will be revisiting if relief is required beyond the May 30th deadline?
So I don't see, Mr. Lautenbach may want to comment on this, but the intent, Councillor Singh, is that, we're dealing with things based on the information we know today. This is as you can appreciate, a quickly evolving situation. And as we see how things develop in the next few weeks, this council will have to convene again and potentially make further decisions in conjunction with both our provincial and our federal partners. There are realities from a financial point of view where, even we as a city, while we're in very good financial stead, we'll need to turn to our provincial and federal partners who have the financial might, particularly the federal government, to assist us through this challenge and just assist Canadians in general.
Absolutely. And I think giving confidence to our residents that we will do all that we can, even if it means beyond the 60 days. And I share what you said, that we would reconvene and look at other measures, but ensuring that we through our language, give that confidence that if this is not the all end all, we will look at other ways that we can provide relief as well. And I look forward to that. And thank you to staff, and thank you to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, and I'll pick up where Premier Councillor Singh left off, in that I certainly want to acknowledge staff's work in this. I know the average resident probably is not aware of the amount of work that's gone on, but we've really transformed how the City of Kitchener operates. It's extraordinary to meet the extraordinary times that we're facing. My questions have largely been answered. I'm very, very happy actually with these first steps that we're taking. But my question is, a lot of this talks about developing plans and that sort of thing. And being that these times are extraordinary, I'm wondering if staff's looking at more significant possibilities, such as perhaps even potentially issuing debt to lessen the burden that our residents pay. I see a lot of work here on the economic development side, but I'd like to see more in terms of supporting like the everyday average at-home resident and the bills that they face.
Mr. Lautenbach.
So through the mayor, something that I maybe can add, even related to Councillor Singh's comment about additional measures down the road. The area treasurers are meeting on a weekly basis, and so we are talking and considering things as the situation continues to evolve. And I think we are open to looking at all scenarios in terms of what that might mean in terms of impacts. I don't think we're at the point right now where we need to look at measures in terms of debt. Certainly, that's an avenue for the municipality if it was something that was extended in terms of looking at what we need in terms of flexibility. But at this point, I think we are taking the approach of setting sort of short-term sort of goals with this, and then revisiting it and coming back at a later time if we need to take more measures.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do just want, I'm not going to make any motions or anything like that, but I do want to encourage staff to keep that in the back of their mind. And I don't take this recommendation lightly. As everyone knows, I'm very debt averse. I spent the last several years chopping down that debt block. But as I said, these times are extraordinary, and I think that's one of the avenues we need to explore should things get worse.
Thanks, Councillor Davey. Councillor Ioannidis.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Vanovic. My question is to, I guess, the communications to this through, how are we going to communicate this to the community? Because I know just looking through some of the media and stuff like that, and other social media outlets, that we were kind of criticized and for not reacting sooner. So I just want to know how are we going to roll this out so that people and our residents are aware of what of these relief funds, which I'm very proud of what we've come up so far, and with the work with our economic development team and with all the staff as well. And I think these are what some of the things that people were asking for. So if you can just give us a little bit of an update on how we're going to roll this out.
Sure. Sure. Thank you very much. And maybe I can start, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Robb to add to that, Councillor Ioannidis. But I think it's important for council to remember, and more importantly, for our residents throughout the community to keep in mind, the recommendations that are before us today required council to be able to meet. And we weren't able to meet electronically until the province declared the state of emergency on Tuesday, a public health emergency on Tuesday. And then they themselves had a reduced meeting of the legislature to have all-party consent to pass the legislation, which allowed us to have this electronic meeting. We also needed to hear from the federal and provincial governments in terms of some of the things that they were offering up. So this really has been the first opportunity for us to consider all that, consider the change in legislation that's allowed us to meet, and now bring forward the recommendations. We, in fact, are the first council that's able to do this, and I know the others throughout the region are going to be doing this in the coming days as well. From a communication perspective, Ms. Robb, did you want to add anything?
Sure, through you, Mayor Verbanovic, we are leveraging our existing relationships with media, and I would acknowledge that a lot of our local media, particularly those who've had paywalls in the past, have eliminated paywalls for COVID-related content, and so kudos to them. They've been a strong connection for us in reaching our community, and so we expect that there will be coverage through our media outlets. We also have a social media program that we will be pushing out with respect to this particular communication. And we're also leveraging the relationships with people like the Waterloo Economic Development Corporation and the Chamber of Commerce to speak directly to the businesses impacted and amplify the messaging. And same for the parking subscribers. We'll be reaching out to them directly to let them know. And so I think you can rest assured that we're maximizing all of our opportunities to communicate to the public and hoping that people are tuning in tonight. I know some of our media partners are, and we would look to them to help communicate this message as well. And I would encourage members of council to do the same. Take the media release and retweet it on your own channels. You have a strong following with citizens who are looking to you for this kind of information, and so we appreciate your support in pushing the messaging out as well.
Okay, thank you for all that. That's great. I just wanted to make sure that was in the public domain, on that we weren't really failing to react. It was just we just had to go through certain procedures and policies to get through, even though it was as quickly as possible as they were. So with that, I do fully support the motion forward. It's the right thing to do. It may not be everything what all our residents needs, but I'm very confident that our upper levels of government, our federal and provincial governments, are doing a remarkable job with this. And I hope in the coming weeks, when this hopefully goes away sooner rather than later, that people will recognize that we as a city and at other levels of government did everything that we could for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, I want to say that I was very, very happy to see what the staff had come up with here, and we need to act fast for our residents and our businesses here. And I think that we need to act in some really big ways. And I would second Councillor Davies' statements on, I think we might need to go farther. Maybe this is the time that we do look at doing some borrowing. And it's not something that we've ever. Well, maybe we have done it before, but it's not something that we certainly look at doing on a regular basis. But this is the time to do it. Our local businesses, our small businesses, which are the backbone of our community, they need help in doing things like keeping their staff so that the recovery, when it comes, is going to be much faster. We need to hang on to our business infrastructure in our community, which means that those businesses need help to be able to keep their employees so that when the recovery comes, we can jump right on that. And maybe it's things like helping businesses. It's almost time for the GST and HST remittances or something that we can look at with that. I know that maybe we can't do that, but in talks with our provincial and federal counterparts, can we look at letting them keep that money so that they have some working capital? How can we help them hold on to what they have, so that they can be successful. And our residents need to feel that they've got someone backing them up, that they've got that help there, so that they know that they're going to have these jobs to continue in as well. So I guess my question is, how can we really push this with the provincial and federal governments about getting those wage subsidies and that help to backstop people and businesses right now?
Mr. Bloom?
So through the mayor, what I would suggest, so the federal government has announced their initial aid package. We're in the process of trying to fully understand the opportunities that will create for both residents and our workforce, as well as businesses. We understand the province will be releasing theirs in the next day or two. What we'll be doing with regional partners is trying to understand from local businesses, are there gaps, whether immediate or long-term gaps, and doing that across all sectors. And what I can imagine, if there are obvious and significant gaps, then when in our next conversation with council is bringing back options that they can consider moving forward. So perhaps it's premature to really describe the exact measures until we know, but just have the confidence that we will be engaged in those discussions moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. I think it's important, as the report notes, that there has been collaborative work that is being done in this regard and will be done in the weeks ahead, involving our partners, including the Waterloo Region EDC, Communitech, the two chambers of commerce, our BIAs, and other business partners. And there's also work being done by the not-for-profit sector that's being led by both the KW Community Foundation, the United Way of Waterloo Region Communities, as well as the Cambridge Community Foundation, to bring the not-for-profit sector together with some of our foundations and so on to look at community need. So this is an area that's going to be actively pursued in the coming days and weeks, and again, we need to remember we're barely into day 10 of this, and there's a lot has happened already, and a lot will need to happen yet in the days and weeks ahead. Councillor Schneider. I'm not sure. He's not muted. Councillor Schneider? Okay, Councillor Schneider, I'll come back to you, and I'll go to Councillor Chapman.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, no, I think what's being proposed here is very good. I like the fact that we're giving incentives, but reduction in, what am I trying to say? Well, parking and the hydro proposals, etc.
Penalties and interest and so on. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Penalties and interest and so on.
Right. So I think that's all very positive, and I like the, what the I don't like doing this TV thing. Okay, sorry. But I guess if I had a concern, it's, and I think Councillor Davey sort of touched on this, that this is great for people in the downtown core and the businesses, and I think we certainly have to support them and ensure that the impact is as, support them as best we can, realizing that the impact is going to be very strong and very hard on many of them. I heard today that the unemployment rate across the country could be as high as 30%, which at the end of all of this, which is higher than the unemployment rate during the time of the Depression. So I guess my question is, how can we ensure and I don't know if this falls under municipal jurisdiction, but is there a way we can introduce things such as prohibiting evictions? Because if people are unable to pay their rent, what tools does the city have to ensure that people aren't forced out of their current living arrangements?
So I don't know who wants to tackle that other than that certainly is something that is as you know, the Landlord and Tenant Act is provincial legislation. And so that would have to be something that comes down from the provincial government, Councillor Chapman.
Okay, I understand that, but so, I mean, I guess I just would invite those that are on these committees that have been formed to keep that in mind, because if there are things that the city can do, we've got to think ahead, because I think there's a lot that's going to happen over the next few months.
Oh, absolutely, and I'll just add, I am having weekly calls with both the MPs and the MPPs locally, and certainly I will convey this concern at that time with the provincial MPPs.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to bring up is the use of our city facilities. And by that, I'm thinking primarily about community centers. And have we thought about how these centers could be used for hospital overflows possibly in the future, or safe spaces for the homeless people, isolation spaces? I mean, I know there are things being talked about, but I guess I'm wanting to bring it back to the city facilities in particular, and what thought is being put into that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. I will say that both the social services work group and the public health work group are dealing with both of those components. As you know, as has been indicated by Mr. Chapman, the responsibility for the pandemic plan and its implementation rests with the region, and it's to Dr. Wong, who heads up the public health group, and Douglas Bartholomew Saunders, who heads up the social services group. I know Mr. May has been working with regional staff on those components, as has Mr. Chapman in the CAO group. Do either of you want to comment on Councillor Chapman's question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can reiterate what you've said, that there is a health sector control group that includes representation from the hospitals and from the healthcare sector. They are planning ahead for a surge in cases that may require them to look for space outside of the hospital system. And we've been involved in active conversations with them around how civic facilities could be redeployed for that purpose. In terms of the update from the community support working group, I would defer to Mr. May on that.
Mr. May?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor. So this community support group is made up of 17 community and governmental agencies or partners. And so they are looking at a variety, the region who's leading this work is looking at a variety of facilities. Some of them are better suited than others. And I would say that what they're doing right now is looking at what is needed for the community and matching those with the best suited facilities. And they do have active leads in a number of facilities.
Okay, I'll just end by saying I commend, all the staff and organizations that are involved in moving these things ahead. I think, we've got a great start, and I just hope to see more things come out as need be. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Schneider, I see you've come back in.
Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right. No, I just wanted to say I really like what I'm hearing from my fellow councillors. I love the care and compassion and the work that the staff has done, and look forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Marsh. Councillor Marsh? I'm not sure if you're speaking, Councillor Marsh, but it looks like you're muted still. Okay, I'll come back to you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just too want to make sure that I take this first opportunity to thank staff for all the work that they've done. As the mayor has mentioned, it's only been 10 days, and the city has transformed the way that they work and do business in that time, and it's been absolutely incredible to see us come together and come up with a plan. This is just the first step, and there's a lot more that we probably can do, but within the jurisdiction that we have right now, these are good first steps for us to take. And I think we continue to partner and work with everyone collaboratively, and I think it's great. And so I wholly support the recommendation and the motion before us. And I just say that if there's anything more that we can do as a council, please don't hesitate to ask, willing to help in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Galloway-Seelock. Councillor Michaud. Councillor Michaud, I think you're muted. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to reiterate pretty much what everybody else has said around the I guess virtual horseshoe, we'll call it. This is a great report. The one thing that I kind of
Sarah Marsh is now joining.
The one thing that I am kind of in agreement with is Councillor Chapman's concern with regards to, and she didn't have said this, the renters. There's not enough mention in this report, in my opinion, for landlords, renters. I think landlords is a business, and I think that they will be getting some recovery efforts from the city towards their business. I hope that somehow gets downloaded to the renters in some way. I know it's not up to municipality, but Mayor Bravanovic, you had mentioned that you have had conversations with the province on this. So I really hope that we can maybe put something in this report with regards to renters and landlords, just as a recommendation. But otherwise, I think this is a great report, and I love the direction it's going. Thanks. Thanks,
Councillor Michaud, and certainly, as I said, I will continue to raise it with our provincial counterparts, and also in terms of my own messaging locally, urging landlords to do the right thing, particularly considering the circumstances that everybody is in right now. At the end of the day, they're not going to, I presume, want to see a lot of vacancies when all this is done either. And so it's in their best interest to make sure that they support people through this difficult challenge that everyone's dealing with.
Mayor Verbanovic?
Yes.
What I can advise council on the point that's been raised by Councillor Michaud and Councillor Chapman is that last Thursday, as a part of a number of announcements, the province announced that they would do exactly what you've described. And so I'll just read an extract from their release. It says, "We're committed to ensuring Ontarians remain safe and secure during this challenging time and are looking at all tools to help individuals and families stay in their homes. As part of this approach, the Ministry of the Attorney General has been granted an order suspending the enforcement of residential evictions until ordered otherwise by the court. Tribunals Ontario will not issue any new eviction orders until further notice. Sheriff's offices have been asked to postpone any scheduled enforcement of eviction orders currently set for this week."
Great, that's helpful information. Thanks, Mr. Chapman. Okay, and now I see Councillor Marsh, you've joined us by telephone, so do you want to proceed?
Hello, yes, my computer froze just at the wrong time.
No worries.
I would like to just echo the comments that are thanking our staff for all the amazing work that they have done the level of dedication and the speed at which they have pulled together a comprehensive plan to implement immediately is really outstanding. And so thank you so much. My questions have been asked.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. So we've gone through all of council. Unless I hear otherwise, I presume that there is nothing else to add. I'll just make a couple of my own comments, and then we'll do the recorded vote. I want to reiterate my thanks to the staff group that has worked hard, led by Mr. Bloom in our Economic Development Division and Mr. Lautenbach in our Financial Services Department, who have put these proposals forward. These are significant proposals, and they're meant to help both our residents and our businesses during this period of unprecedented financial difficulty that certainly they're encountering. We recognize that this is an incredibly difficult time for people, and it's one that is going to require the financial support of the federal government, the provincial government, and regional and municipal governments to tackle these challenges together in the weeks and months ahead. The proposals that are before us are, I think, a strong first step for us to be able to assist residents. But I echo Councillor Davies' comments that we need to look out for all our residents in the coming months. And personally, as mayor, I remain committed to ensuring that we do everything we can within reason to ensure that we provide the supports that the community is looking for us for in this critical time. And so with that, I just also want to mention the incredible collaboration that's happening between both the municipalities and our community partners, and the leadership that, particularly from an economic development point of view, both Ian Klugman from Communitech and Tony Lamantia from Waterloo Region EDC, along with Ian McLean from the Kitchener Waterloo Chamber of Commerce and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce have shown to really sort of get this economic development end of things going and working collaboratively with us. There'll be more news on this in the days ahead as this group solidifies the work that they're doing. So with that, I will do a roll call vote as we need to do in these circumstances. And so you're clear on the motion that's been moved by Councillors Davey and Gazzola. And Councillor Gazzola, I'll start with you. You can just
yes, I'm prepared to totally support the recommendation that's before us, and I will do so without adding any comments. I have a lot of comments that I could add, but we need to get on with life here. So I totally support what's before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, very happy to support the motion.
Councillor Davey.
Affirmative.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Affirmative.
Councillor Johnston.
Affirmative.
Councillor Schneider.
Proudly affirmative.
Councillor Chapman.
Yes, I support the motion.
Councillor Marsh.
Affirmative.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Affirmative.
Councillor Michaud.
Affirmative.
And the mayor is affirmative as well, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll proceed then with the next item on the agenda, and that's the tenders. And the tenders are being moved by Councillor Galloway-Seelock and Councillor Marsh.
Sarah Marsh
is now exiting.
Oh, okay. So I caught her just.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're still here. Okay, perfect. I'll go through if there are any questions, but if people can keep them focused. All of these tenders are consistent with our normal processes in the city. Councillor Gazzola?
Yes, I have a number of questions, but I will defer on them. I am concerned with a number of tenders that we're issuing, and I'm really questioning whether they need to be, do we need to go forward at this time? You know, the first two tenders both deal with roof replacements. Looking at the cost that's before us and the budget that we have, the costs are 65% higher than our budget. I mean, we're getting into a new era here that we're going to have to control where we're going, and we're in both cases, from what I read, yes, it would be nice to replace these roofs at this time, but I don't see any reference that it's a dire necessity that they be done at this time. And therefore, I'm just wondering if there are three roofs on the agenda for tenders, one at a fire hall, one at a golf course, and one at the auditorium. The one at the auditorium is within our budget plans. I can see that one going forward, but I would like to see the other two delayed at this time.
Mr. Chapman or Ms. McGoldrick, did you want to comment on those?
I would defer to Ms. McGoldrick.
Okay, it's Ms. McGoldrick here, through the mayor. The roofing, when the budgets were originally established for these two roofing projects, they were built off of a building condition assessment from 2016. Subsequently, when the detailed tender was being prepared following establishment of the budget, the scope for the work for both of these projects needed to be increased due to additional deterioration and additional areas of the roof requiring replacement. And so from a staff perspective, we would not recommend deferral. These roofs, they will only continue to deteriorate and the cost will only continue to escalate. In speaking with our roofing professional, IRC, who does both the condition assessment and the costing, based on, while the prices did come in higher than anticipated, their expertise suggested that we would not get more favorable pricing should we delay further into the year or retender in a subsequent year.
I'm not looking for more favorable pricing here. I'm looking at something that, does it really need to be done at this time? Is it more important than providing relief to our taxpayers and to our businesses in the months ahead? We have to change the way we go. This is the first time in many, many years that we're going to have to start at looking to tighten our belts, and we're going to have to start doing things that need to be done, not just what would be nice to do. So I'm not looking for better prices. I know that's inevitable. And yes, going down the road, it may be more expensive, but I think we need to watch the outflow of our funds and to have our funds available for things that are really more relevant, especially our health.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond to that?
Go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
Certainly, we agree with Councillor Gazzola that our budget will look very different as we head into 2021. I guess the one argument that we see, and the province I think is making it very strongly, is that infrastructure investments are stimulus in the economy. And so the Premier has made it clear that even with everything else that's closing down, he wants to see construction continue. And so our hope is that these tenders will lead to good construction jobs as long as they can continue in this construction season, and it very much is economic stimulus.
I appreciate, and I've heard your comments already. I've heard the Premier's comments, and I can understand that, and I appreciate that. But we have a lot of tenders on the go here. There's a list of almost 8 or 9 tenders. I'm not saying to cancel them all, but I'm saying we do need to cut back. We do need to cut back. I think, our first responsibility right now is to our ratepayers and to our businesses. Now, we can't, these things of full employment and economic measures. Those are some things that we have to look to our senior governments for. So I'm not saying stop all infrastructure work. I'm just saying we do need to cut back a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Councillor Singh.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Initially, when I looked at the tenders, I had a similar concern as Councillor Gazzola about the necessity of proceeding forward with work, or could we save this and reallocate for something else where we have more dire need across the community now. But from the answer I got from Ms. McGoldrick, what I'm hearing is, and I'm looking for a confirmation that we can't do a stopgap, I'm assuming. The roofs are beyond repair, that even if we were to, like, it can't be extended.
What I heard.
So through the
Councillor Gazzola, if you can mute yourself now, please.
So through the chair.
I'm looking for a confirmation if the roof life can be extended through repair, or they're in a current state that they can't.
So at additional cost, the roofs can be continued to be repaired, but they continue to deteriorate. So the repair investment would be considered a throwaway cost, with ultimately needing to replace. These roofs are in poor condition, and we are seeing a penetration internal to the facilities. And so there is an added cost associated with continuing to do patchwork associated with the condition of these roofs.
So even with repairs, there could still be penetration of rainwater into the facilities?
We would anticipate needing to continue to repair as the roof continues to deteriorate. And what we found is that the extent of the roof requiring replacement grew significantly since they were originally scoped in 2016.
And the water that does go through, seep through, and that causes damage to the internals of the facility as well, beyond the roof?
That's correct. If repairs aren't done in a timely manner, then that can cause internal issues within the facility.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Davey.
I'm good.
Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Ioannidis?
I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
I'm good as well.
Councillor Schneider.
I'm good.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of it, but I appreciate the questions that Councillor Gazzola is asking. So if just repairs are to be made at this point, how much of a difference, both financially and as far as the state of the roof, would that make?
Ms. McGoldrick?
And I'm talking about both facilities, sorry. Or is one worse than the other? I mean, if you could give us sort of a clear indication of what we're looking at here.
So through the mayor, I don't have what the cost of repairs would be. What I can say that any cost of repairs would be in addition to eventual replacement costs. So any additional investment in repairs to the roof would be considered throwaway costs.
And how old are these roofs?
I don't have the information on the age of the roof. I can certainly get that for you.
And my last question would be, if we were to defer this or just do a patchwork job, a repair job, can the money that we're not spending be used for unexpected expenses during this pandemic?
So through the mayor, the monies are currently allocated in the capital budget to roofing projects, and the funding of the additional costs is the balance available in the roof general provision. Council could certainly reallocate budget dollars as council sees fit.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
I have no questions, but I will just comment that I would be concerned about deferring this work at this juncture. I think it's time to move on. I can appreciate the desire to try to move more funds towards helping our residents, and I agree. We need to really look and continue to look at what we can do for our residents, but this and our businesses, of course. But this is not the way to do it. At an 11th hour, once a tender has already been won, this is not the time. So I would strongly urge council to not try to defer these tenders.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, in light of some of the questioning that I've heard, I just wanted to ask one quick question, and that's with respect to the infrastructure deficit that we heard about earlier in the year or earlier last year. Is this part of that deficit? Will we be ticking off a couple boxes by doing these roofs?
Ms. McGoldrick?
Yeah, so through the mayor, absolutely, this is an investment in our facilities, which comprised the largest asset class of infrastructure deficit. So yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. I wholeheartedly support the recommendations to continue to move forward, understanding the concern of my fellow councillors. I too want to make sure that we have the means to help the citizens through this pandemic. But I think this is something that we need to continue to move forward. And we've got many other tools in our toolkit that we can use as we move forward through this pandemic. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to move the tenders.
Thank you. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I'm just reiterating, agree actually with what Councillor Marsh and Galloway-Seelock said. I'll support these tenders. I'm not going to belabor this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I too will be supporting the tenders that are before us. I think now is not the time to be removing things, particularly that are on part of our infrastructure deficit in terms of our buildings. I mean, one of the roofs we're talking about is a fire hall, for example. Not having leaking water going into one of our first responders buildings is a priority for me. And at the end of the day, I do understand the concerns that have been raised, and we're going to need to look at that as we look at future budgets. But I can tell you both on the call that I was on with the big city mayors and Deputy Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Chrystia Freeland, the issue of looking at economic recovery and the role that cities and infrastructure will play as they did in post the 2010 economic difficulties. Cities are going to be at the forefront of this in terms of what the federal government is looking at. And as Mr. Chapman has said, this has been a priority for the province as well. So with that, the tenders have been moved and seconded, and I'll go through and deal with the vote. And again, we'll have to have a roll call. So Councillor Gazzola.
If I might, I had a question also on the large project. I think it's on the Hebel Street. The project is set to go $300,000 over budget, and there's $125,000 coming from the disaster mitigation fund. Is it possible to get more funding out of that in order to cover that deficit?
Ms. McGoldrick or Mr. Lautenbach?
So through the mayor, I'll respond to that. In our DMAF application to the province, we had identified projects and funding allocations, and that's now reflected in the capital budget, what the allocation for each specific project is. And so we would need to remove funding from another project in order to do that, and would require through our contractual arrangement with the federal government agreement to be able to do that.
And the question I'm asking is it possible to do that? We received a $50 million grant. Are we able to switch around $300,000? I was of the understanding that we could.
Councillor Gazzola, I guess I'll be blunt and suggest that the federal government has some bigger issues and priorities on their plate right now than considering a request to potentially, shift $150,000 or some other amount from the city of Kitchener in terms of their overall consideration of our grant. Anyway, I was moving on to the voting. So, Councillor Gazzola, your vote?
Yeah, I'm gonna not support the first two tenders. I will support the remainder.
Okay, I wasn't going to split it up, but if you're asking for that to be done, if I can ask everyone to indicate as well, we're going to separate the first two, but if you can indicate your vote for both at the same time. Councillor Singh.
The affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Davey.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Johnson.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Schneider.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Chapman.
Did you call me?
Yes, I did.
Okay, sorry. I'll support both.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Affirmative for all the tenders.
Thank you. And Councillor Michaud.
Affirmative for both tenders, all the tenders. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And I'm voting in affirmative for all the tenders. And so both, so all the tenders do carry. We'll now move on to reports of the committees. And we have two reports in front of us. Councillor Davey, do you want to move Finance and Corporate Services Committee?
I do, yes. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gazzola. The 6 items from Finance and Corporate Services Committee be adopted.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go right into the voting. Well, I think I'm going to go right into the voting unless anybody has a need to make any comments. Not here. Sorry.
I was going to ask that you pull out item number 6 separately. When I indicate, I will indicate that I support all 5, except I do not support number 6.
Okay, thank you.
You can do that as you did the time before.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gazzola. So, so you're supporting 1 to 5, but not 6. So folks can either indicate they're supporting all, or if there's one you're not, or if you're not supporting item number 6, indicate accordingly. Councillor Singh.
Can you remind us what number 6 is?
Number 6 was financial policy FIN-PLA-2021 budget control policy be approved as outlined in the report.
Mr. Mayor, supporting all.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Supporting all.
Councillor Ioannidis.
I support all of them.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Schneider.
I support them all.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I still want clarification on that. I don't have it in front of me because I have my phone and my computer working together here. What's the item number 6?
Mr. Lautenbach, can you just refresh Councillor Chapman on this?
So through the mayor, item number 6 was the financial policy, budget control policy that council reviewed at committee. And so it essentially is documenting our current practices related to operating budget variances and also proposing capital status reporting moving forward.
Okay, I'll support them all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Michaud. Councillor Michaud.
Oh, sorry, affirmative for all. I wasn't sure what it's called.
Thank you, and I'm affirmative for all, so all items 1 through 6 do carry. Councillor Galloway-Seelock, can you bring forward Community and Infrastructure Services, please?
Absolutely. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dave Schneider that items 1 through 10 be approved.
Thank you. And again, I won't be going around. I'll go right into the voting unless I hear from anybody now.
Okay, sorry, Mayor Verbanovich, if I could just expedite the process, if we could do the same thing we did, but with item number 8.
Item number 8 pertaining to the Vision Zero strategy.
Vision Zero, yes. No comments. I said my comments at committee.
Okay, so we'll ask people to indicate either if they're supporting everything or if they're asking for, or if they're not supporting number 8. So Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, there are 10 items. I will support the first 9. I will not be supporting item number 10, which deals with the hiring of additional staff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Supporting all 10 items.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Supporting all 10 with the exception of item number 8.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis.
I support all items.
Councillor Johnston.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Schneider.
I support all.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I'll support all except number 8.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Affirmative for all.
Councillor Michaud.
I support all.
Thank you, and I support all as well. So even with the negative votes for items 8 and 10, all 10 items do carry. Thank you, everyone. So that gets us through the reports of committees. I'll ask for bylaws to be read for 3 readings. Somebody care to move that?
I'll move them.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis. Seconder?
Kelly.
Sorry, who was that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And I guess I need to go through a roll call vote again. Councillor Gazzola.
Yes.
Councillor Singh.
Affirmative.
Councillor Davey.
Affirmative.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Affirmative.
Councillor Johnson.
Affirmative.
Councillor Schneider.
Affirmative.
Councillor Chapman.
Affirmative.
Councillor Marsh.
Affirmative.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Affirmative.
And Councillor Michaud.
Affirmative.
And I'm affirmative as well. So the 3 bylaws carry. So that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us through our first televised, and not televised, our first electronic council meeting. If I may, just before we end this meeting, I want to thank all of council, all of staff, particularly clerks and IT staff who worked hard over the last several days to make this meeting a possibility. I want to thank those from the community and the media who joined us this evening. Together, we've made some important decisions tonight that ensure our community has the support it needs for the days ahead. For all of the latest updated information and frequently asked questions, we invite Kitchener citizens and businesses to check our website often at kitchener.ca/COVID-19 or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Thank you to both council and staff for your incredible leadership on this and on our overall emergency management response, and for the incredible care that I know you're all demonstrating with our community and each other during these difficult times. Collectively, we've accomplished so much for our community in such a short time, and I have every confidence that we'll continue to lead the way. I encourage everyone in the community to also continue following the directions of Waterloo Region Public Health. Be vigilant in washing your hands frequently and in being socially distant if you must go out. But let me be clear, the time has come for all of us to go home and stay home unless absolutely necessary. To those of you who have returned from out-of-country travel in particular, to be completely clear, it is critically important to the community's safety that you self-isolate for the recommended 14 days. Do not go out to shop, do not go out to visit friends, self-isolate. If you need supports, reach out. There are people in the community who will help you. This is essential for the well-being of yourself, for your family, for the rest of the community, and in particularly for our healthcare providers. There's no question the coming weeks are going to be challenging. Above all, in the days ahead, we must keep caring for one another. We need to call in and check in on each other, check on your neighbors, make sure that the elderly you know have what they need. Be helpers where you can. Our community has a long history of being a caring and innovative and most of all, a resilient community. I know this challenge will be no different and we'll come out stronger at the end. Kitchener, stay safe and stay healthy. The council, we're adjourned.
To spend your time with us tonight. We will see you next time.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
If you have questions about the COVID-19 outbreak, visit the Region of Waterloo, Huron Public Health, Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph Public Health, and Brant County Health Unit for the most accurate and up-to-date information. Ontario 211 is also a resource you can contact. If you are in a mental health crisis, please call HERE 24/7 at 1-844-437-3247. Do not call 911 unless you have an emergency.
This is Rogers TV.
We teamed up with designer Shauna Lynn Simon to find out what's trending in home decor.
So we're here at Snugglers in Waterloo. Okay, so now we're at this amazing customized table, but there's something very unique about it. Tell us.
Well, what's really unique about this is, first of all, it's a glass with wood table.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, it is.
And normally when you buy a glass table, you can't customize it. You can't change out the base, you can't change out the glass, and this is one where you can do all of that again.
Yes.
So that's what's really cool about it, and it does come in different sizes as well. And look at these different glasses. You can get all sorts of different frosting.
Yes.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's not your typical like clear glass. You got that beautiful frost right going right through it. And it kind of gives it that elegance and elevates it to the style that it needs to be.
It does, and it does help to minimize the appearance of dust as well when it's just a little bit frosted, which is another great tip too.
Absolutely.
And then again, the chairs are once again customized, and this table's doing something that I love to do in my own styling.
What's that? Tell me.
I love changing up the end chairs. There's no reason why the end chairs have to match your side chairs. You can get a nice armchair on the end, but it doesn't have to be the same fabric, doesn't have to be the same style.
Or color.
Or color.
Right?
Exactly.
That's
so
neat.
you can actually change it up and create a really cool, fun look. And especially if you're in like a nice modern type condo, like there's so much you can be doing with this.
Yeah.
This whole set is definitely screaming a little bit of mid-century modern.
Yeah.
And that is really on trend right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just sitting here kind of gave me that retro modern version, like of a vibe, like almost I'm at the Brady Bunch table.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, just add a couple more chairs and you can fit the whole family
Right?
around here. Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So we're talking about kitchens still. We're moving into the new segment of the kitchens.
Yes.
What is trending in kitchen world?
Okay, so we're trending on the whole open concept in a lot of
Yes.
these homes, right?
Yeah.
And with that comes the kitchen island.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's an island or a peninsula or some sort of gathering. It's what's great about this trend is
Yes.
while one person is cooking in the kitchen, or maybe a couple people are cooking in the kitchen, the kids can be gathering, and you're talking about their day while you're cooking and getting everything ready. And it's really great. Really lends itself to conversation when you're entertaining the works. But with the kitchen islands comes a whole new furniture piece that we're still not necessarily accustomed to. So finally, we've got a company that's come out with a solution to give you exactly the right look and style for yourself.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's talk about that then.
I have never seen so many options when it comes to stools. So these are just a few of the styles.
Wow.
You can have backless, you can have where it rotates, or you can have it stationary.
Oh yeah, this one rotates too. Cool.
Yeah, and this is just, again, these are just a few styles.
Yes.
There's a whole line of these. And then you can actually pick, so you pick your style first.
Okay.
And then you get to start customizing it. So you can pick how you want the base to be.
Oh, neat.
Right? What color, what style, as well as the fabric that you want on it as well.
Oh boy, and you can go endless on that as well too. Look at that.
So the one thing that I would say when it comes to picking a stool, what this does is a lot of times what people end up doing is they pick the wrong stool. It's not comfortable enough, but it was the right color, or it was the right size.
Okay.
So in this case, we start with the style and the size first, and then we can customize it to exactly the right look. So the key that I say is make sure you sit in the stool.
Okay.
Right?
I'm gonna sit in the stool.
How do you want it to? Okay,
Let's sit in the stool.
Let's do this.
We got to practice what we're preaching here, right?
Exactly. So how do you there's always different footrests for it, for example. So do you want your feet to actually rest on it, or do you want them to kind of
dangle there?
Dangle a little bit more.
Okay.
Do you want it to spin? And one thing to think about when it comes to the spinning is if you are sitting at an island, if you have a solid back, if that's going to be hitting your island, it can chip away at it. So you want to be really careful with that. So if it is a spinning stool and you do have that hard surface island, you might want to go with a soft back.
Okay, that's a good key point that you pointed out there. Yes.
And how do you want that back? Do you want it to hug you? Do you want it to, what size is the person that's normally sitting in the stool? What's going to be most comfortable for them? So there's a lot of things to think about. If you are have people that maybe have some sort of disabilities or a little bit just older even, you want to make sure it's a nice sturdy stool too. Some of them are going to have a stronger base than others. So sitting in the stool and really testing it out will help you to understand exactly what's going to fit best for yours.
Yeah, and it just feels good because now you're making it your own at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, don't let it, you can't let any limitations to color or anything like that stop you. You have no excuses now to get the perfect stool for your kitchen.
Yeah, and I feel like even though we're talking about kitchen, you can perhaps even use the stool anywhere else. Even if you have guests or whatever, you can use it as an extra seating or whatever you'd like to use it for, and just relax and lay back if you have a back on it.
Exactly.
I prefer a back on mine because then it just kind of gives you that comfort. Yeah, you don't have to be so upright, but yeah, the option is no back as well too. So.
Yeah, well, the advantage to the no back stool is if you are in a smaller space, it will tuck in a lot easier, whereas often the backs will end up sticking out a little bit. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah.
And also the sight line, sometimes the back might get in the way of the sight line that you're looking at. So you do want to take that into consideration too.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for everything today. Caitlin from CAA, who's going to give us all the tips that we need to know about winter safety. So let's just get right into it. What do we need to know?
So right now really is the time to plan ahead and prepare. If you do that now, chances are you're going to have a safe winter season.
Okay, good.
What that starts with is looking at your maintenance. So thinking about first your things like your brakes, your wipers, your battery, and your tires. Those are kind of the 4 main ones that you want to be thinking about. Making sure you're putting those winter tires on.
Yeah,
very
that's very important. Yes.
And then the battery.
Yes, because with winter tires, you can have the all seasons, but they're just not the same as the winter tires.
They are not. A lot of people wonder, you know, is it really the same or different?
Yeah.
They are different. They actually have silica on the inside, which allow them to stop and grip the road more easily. And it's not just snow, it's actually cold weather.
Okay.
So it can make a really, really big difference safety-wise, up to about 2 car lengths.
Oh, wow.
So other things are looking at your wipers, you know, again, just those key check-ins, making sure that you have good visibility.
Right.
If you are having a lot of streaks on your windshield wiper and on your windshield, it might be time to take a look at those.
Yeah.
And then looking at your fluids, because in the colder weather, your fluids actually do get thicker, and so it's important to make sure that you're keeping those topped up and clean.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually didn't know that they would get thicker. I think you'd think liquid and it just stays liquid, but no, not in fact.
Colder it gets.
And what about gas in the car?
So gas is a really important one for safety when you're on the road.
Yeah.
It's tough to do it, but it's important to try to keep your gas tank at least half full.
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One, there can be some issues with gas lines freezing if they're too empty.
Okay.
But also, and more importantly, if you do get stuck at the side of the road and it's a really cold day, being able to have enough gas to leave your car on while you're waiting.
Right, just to kind of get it all warmed up and ready to go.
Exactly.
I think I run mine a little bit too long sometimes because it's a little too toasty when I get it, and I'm like, maybe I should have not run it that long.
As long as you're warm.
Exactly, because it can get really cold.
Yeah.
So on like a wind chill day, what should people do? Like when it gets icy and it's really super cold.
So it's really important to plan ahead on those, especially mornings if you're heading out for work. A lot of people, you'll be used to the route that you're taking and the time that it takes, but you really want to be thinking about, okay, what is my route today?
Yeah.
We always recommend staying on main roads because they will be a little less you know, crowded, and also there'll be less snow because the snow plows will be out already and salted.
Yeah.
And then another big one is not using cruise control. So, you know, cruise control, you may not be paying as much attention, so you want to be really focusing on the road and have full control of the vehicle.
Yeah, that's really important actually if you think about it, because if you have to brake, you have to be prepared for that.
Absolutely.
So when should we start braking perhaps? Because that ice could just slide us right into the next, right? So when's the best time to maybe tap on those brakes?
So, I mean, every circumstance is different, but what you really want to be doing in the winter is driving according to those weather conditions.
Yeah.
So if it's really snowy or there's ice rain or even regular rain, slow down, drive according to the conditions, and try to keep that 2 or 3 vehicle length in between your cars.
Yeah.
If you do find yourself in a situation that you're swerving or sliding, stay calm. You want to stay and drive into that a little bit so that you're not actually jerking the car a certain way.
Yeah.
And then just try to regain control of the vehicle.
That sounds like good defensive driving.
We always recommend if you have a new car or if, you know, it's been a whole year, test it out. Make sure you understand how your car is going to react in certain situations.
Yeah.
How to use your emergency brake. Be comfortable with the vehicle so that when something does happen unexpected, you're ready.
Yeah, that's all great tools. And I know that it may seem redundant in some ways because it seems common, but at the same time, we need to be on this because it's winter. And it can be very dangerous on the roads at this time of year, right?
Right, and it's really just about keeping those things top of mind. You know, in the summertime, we have a little bit more freedom, I think, to get on the open road, do the road trips, things like that. In the winter, the weather can change really fast. It's really important for us to just be prepared and ready to be safe on the road.
And another thing I think is highly important is to make sure that you're always taking the snow off your car, because all that debris of the snow can just be a distraction for other drivers and become dangerous that way too, right?
That's a really important piece. And we actually at CAA talk a lot about just courtesy driving, especially in the winter time. Taking all the snow off your vehicle is a really important one, both for your visibility and, as you mentioned, the visibility of other drivers. There's some other things too from a courtesy perspective to always think about. You know, as drivers are on those really snowy highways, sometimes it can be easy to want to just focus on you and keep moving.
Right.
But try to help your other drivers. You know, if someone's trying to get in your lane, give them a moment.
Yeah, like don't speed up and try to cut them off.
Exactly. Let everyone wants to get to where they're going safely.
Yeah.
And I always say the rear view window wave can go a long way.
Yeah,
so
I always do that. I just do a little thank you, or sometimes I'll put my hand out the window just in case if they didn't even see that, because for sure you want that
reinforcing good behavior.
Exactly, and it's safe behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And say for example, now we are on the side of the road and we got stuck. What are some tips on that?
So the first most important thing you want to think about if you do get stuck on the side of the road is to determine if you feel safe.
Okay.
So if you do not feel safe, we recommend you call 911 right away.
Okay.
If you do feel safe and you're kind of off to the side of the road and you're not in a precarious situation, call your roadside assistance provider. Make sure that you know your location. Yeah. So that's a key one.
Yeah.
And you'll never, this is really important, you'll never want to exit the vehicle if you don't have to.
Okay.
And if you do, exit away from the road. So don't sort of open your car door into a road, even if it doesn't seem like a busy one.
Right.
Because you want to shield yourself from the traffic as much as possible. And then just staying as visible as possible. And hopefully you have your emergency kit stocked up.
Yeah.
And so you've got all that you need to kind of wait for help to come and save you.
Well, that's great. And we're going to talk about emergency kits and we're going to look at what that looks like. So let's go do that.
Okay, perfect.
So we have our emergency kit. What should we have in there?
So emergency kits are really important, especially in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And you want to be thinking about warmth.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that I've got some very warm mittens and a nice warm toque. Those are things that you should have as extras, not your day-to-day regular ones, but some extra ones in your kits should you get into a situation where you need to stay warm. Along that vein, we've got toe warmers, hand warmers, things to really keep you cozy.
Yeah.
You never know what you might encounter, and it's best just to be prepared.
And how many of these should we have perhaps in the kit?
Yeah, I think as long as you have, a couple. You don't need to be, fully stocking for a week or anything like that, but you want to be able to take care of yourself for a few hours on the side of the road if needed.
Yes.
Because you never know what circumstances, if there's a giant blizzard or something that can get you into a situation where you need to wait longer than normal.
Okay.
In addition to that warm stuff, and you'll notice I also have a nice warm blanket.
Yes, you do.
We also have in the emergency kit usually those metal-y type blankets that you can put over if you really need to stay warm.
Yep.
And as well, you need a emergency kit, first aid kit.
Okay.
So that doesn't need to be too extensive, but you want to be able to take care of some of those basic medical needs if something arises.
So what would you put in there, would you say?
Oh, you need, Band-Aids, gauze, that type of thing.
Okay.
So something simple that you might take when you're kind of going for a walk in the woods or something like that.
Sounds good.
And nextly, we've got some things to keep you visible.
Yes.
So always need a flashlight.
Yeah.
You never know when you might need that.
Now, should we use battery or should we use like a crank?
Yeah, so I do have a battery one here.
Okay.
Crank is great.
Okay.
If you do have a battery, just make sure that you're checking those batteries on a regular basis.
Sure. Should we actually put extra batteries in our safety
Extra
kit?
batteries are a great idea. Doesn't hurt.
All right.
I always like to have tools like this. So this is actually a really handy tool that we sell at our stores, and it's a multi-purpose tool.
Okay.
So it has a magnet on the bottom, and you can actually put it on the top of your car and press a button that will make you very visible.
Oh, it's a light.
It's a light.
Oh, cool.
It's a whistle.
Oh.
It's a seatbelt cutter. It's a window.
Oh, wow.
It does everything that you might need in the event of an emergency.
What is this called, though? Like, what's the actual
It's an
name for it?
all-purpose tool.
Okay.
An all-purpose safety
Cool.
tool. So that's something that I really recommend because
Yeah.
it really does kind of cover a lot of bases.
Yeah,
and
sure
you
does.
do want to keep yourself visible if you're on the side of the
Absolutely,
road.
especially if it's really coming down the snow.
Exactly. In addition to that, it's always good to have some non-perishable food items and some water. We always recommend a couple bottles of water. Again, you never know what might happen.
Exactly.
And then, of course, you've got your standard, your snow brush, a shovel, things to help you keep your car clear of snow and debris.
Yeah.
And then just making sure that you've got those regular things maintained in your car, like your windshield wipers and things like that.
That's a great kit to have in your car. And I know some of the newer cars have the kits, but I feel like this is more of a stable kit.
And I think the most important thing, if your car does come with a safety kit, open it up, get familiar with it, make sure it has all the pieces that you need. And really, emergency kits are about peace of mind. Right. Hopefully you'll never need them.
No,
but at least if you have it, you know that you'll be covered.
Exactly. And if you have a family as well too, because it kind of looks like a kit for one, should we be adding more to the kit?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're regularly driving with, say, a couple of kids, or your husband or wife, you want to be making sure that you have enough to take care of people for a couple of hours.
It's a great kit, and I actually have to put one in my car, so all of this kind of covered exactly what I need for all year round.
Yes.
I mean, it is for the winter we're talking about it, but it seems like it's an all year round purpose.
You should definitely have an emergency kit all year round. In the winter, you just want to be adding those elements that, create warmth and that kind of thing.
Well, I think a lot of us with the Toronto Maple Leafs alumni, I think it's important to support men's health, not only men's health, but men's mental health. I think it's an important part of society nowadays to support that.
Not just only celebrating Movember, how can we keep the conversation going all year round?
Well, I think it's important. It's events like this where we're supporting men's health on the ice. I think you get a bunch of people in a building, you raise some awareness, you raise some money, you have some fun with your friends, and you have an enjoyable time. I think everybody that's been here so far earlier tonight that we had dinner with and were able to talk to are pretty excited about this opportunity, and I think this is how it raises awareness throughout the year as well.
Yeah. And what would you want people to know out there more about men's health in regards to, keeping up with that? Because as we're in the new digital age, things have definitely changed. There's more information coming our way more than ever. How can we keep our health going mentally, physically, and just keep moving?
Yeah, well, I think number one thing for men's health and mental health is to make sure you are keeping moving. I think, not only athletics, not only sport, but just going for a walk or enjoying some time with your family outdoors is important as just playing a sport in general. So I think it's important for all of us to believe in this and be part of it.
We were just talking to Darcy about having the conversation and keep it going all year round. How do you continue to do that?
Well, it's amazing. I've learned so much in my time as a country director that we really need to do more about having the conversation. My dad and I have a great relationship. When I took this job earlier in the fall, he reached out to me and said, "Do you know what? I've been dealing with this prostate thing for 15 years. He never told me the whole time that we were, the last 15 years of our lives. And Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because it's all fine. It's all good." But it really brought home to me that we really have to have these conversations. We have to be deliberate about them. We have to make the time to make them happen. And it's so important for our health to do that.
Absolutely. And talking about just having the conversation going, how can we empower and have a positive impact on our younger youth and their well-being and overall health?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think the first thing is it's just hard to do it the first time. But after that, it's not. Like, one of the issues that we deal with is testicular cancer, right? Young guys have a million words for testicles, but probably have a hard time talking about testicular cancer. What we got to do is make that normal, and we got to make it okay. It's part of your body. It's a part that we got to get checked out. It's a part that we got to take care of, because testicular cancer is the most common cancer in young men in Canada. And there's no outward symptoms. You really just have to check yourself and make sure that you're okay. And if something's not normal, you got to go see a doctor and get it checked. So that's how we start with young people. Just got to make it normal.
And how can we continue to support men and women Movember and overall men's health and women's health?
Yeah, well, our Mo brothers, our Mo sisters, we have over 70,000 people in Canada that have signed up to support us this year. One of our jobs, and this is on us, is to help make the conversation go all year round, because people are dealing with mental health, people are dealing with cancer 12 months of the year, not just in the month that we grow these ridiculous mustaches, right? Oh, thank you. You can send the word to my family because they're not huge fans. But it really is on us to make sure that we're having that conversation all year round, and that's something that we're working hard on doing.
So my title is Community Engagement Specialist. It's, I always say it's a fancy made-up title because it covers off a whole bunch of different things that I do here. One of my biggest responsibilities is managing our volunteer program. Volunteering is so relevant in this day and age. We find people come here and volunteer for many different reasons, but a couple key ones that we see is getting into the industry. In terms of the media industry, most jobs that you see, even the entry-level jobs, require a significant amount of experience.
That's right.
And so Rogers TV is a great way where people can get actual professional experience working on real TV shows that are actually going to air, but they can do it without having had previous experience on that. So we get volunteers who have never touched a camera before who come in and operate a camera for an OHL hockey game.
That's awesome. So that real hands-on experience that you're looking for is right here at Rogers TV. And so we can contact you if we want to get involved with volunteering, that's right?
Absolutely. On our website, we have a link that says volunteer. Under that, there's some information about the volunteer program, and then there's a volunteer application form. If you fill out that application form, it actually comes straight to me, and then I'll be in touch with you and discuss what some of the different options are that are available and what the next steps are for volunteering.
My name is Aaliyah, and I'm a Rogers TV volunteer. My favorite part about volunteering here at Rogers TV is getting to meet people in the community and getting to work with the crew, the co-op students, and the internship students. We get to learn and grow from each other, and I just love that. Everyone is super nice. It feels really great to be a part of this team here at Rogers TV.
So our coats are super warm, made for Canadian winters. They're 50% down, 50% feather. And the coat that you're wearing, I absolutely love it. I love the hood. We're going to show you.
Honestly, I feel like I'm wearing a hug.
Yeah? Okay, fantastic. So to keep you extra warm, it has a beautiful vest. So you can zip it up.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, so look at that.
Very
it's
functional,
gorgeous, right?
yes.
And then it obviously has a zipper right here, has pockets. We gave you a little pocket also here on the arm.
Oh, cool.
So just in case if you wanted to put a credit card, a car key,
good idea.
maybe some music to tune,
Or you're going to take your dog out for a walk.
That's
you go
right.
ahead, you have this, maybe you have a little doggy bag in here for your doggy, right?
Exactly. Nice, yeah.
This jacket has it all, okay?
It does have it all. So then we have a hood. Do you mind?
Yes, please.
Okay, so look at that. Like, how gorgeous is that?
I
think that looks fabulous. And then we can, you can have a little button here, so you can make it nice and tight. So, and if you don't like the fur, this fur comes off.
Which is faux fur, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
It is faux fur. Yes, we are definitely environmentally conscientious. But yes, it does come off. So again, it's very warm.
Yeah.
And then when you open the coat, we have another surprise. We have a little pocket.
Ooh.
Again, so you can put
your personal items right in there.
Exactly. So really, maybe the purse,
This is the purse.
This is the purse.
Wearing
this is the jacket.
Yes,
it is
perfect.
super warm, washes great.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic jacket. And I want to show you another one that we have because again, like we mentioned, going for long walks because we all need exercise.
Of course.
Right? We have this beautiful coat. It is longer. So if I just hold it actually to me.
Yes, you can see it goes past the knee.
So it is past the knees. Again, the hood itself comes off. So you can totally take the hood off. This little faux fur comes off as well. And another fantastic thing this jacket has is zippers on the side.
Wow.
So if you are getting in and out of the car, Oh my goodness. You've got a little bit of movement.
Oh my gosh, do you know how many times I've gotten because I'm tight with my jacket and I'm trying to move like this, but now that you actually have the flexibility and some movement with the jacket, see, this is so functional, and this is what I like about Clio. They really listen to the customers, and then they are able to create something that can be used all year round. I mean, let's face it, winter is a long period of time for us, so having something functional like this is exactly what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing, you know, just even the detail with the cuffs. So you've got
that nice fleece.
Exactly. So you know what? It just keeps you nice and warm.
Cozy.
Yes.
I really love it.
So you are definitely going to be nice and warm.
Yeah, I feel really chic as well too. I mean, it really gives you such a good, confident feeling that when you're going to go face that winter weather, you also look great at the same time. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
What's with all this technology? Do you find it a little daunting to use or learn it? I'm going to help simplify things and remove the fears with step-by-step instructions for your computers, tablets, and smart devices. Technically Simple, every Monday at 4 p.m.
This is Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm
Stacy Bester, and welcome to my kitchen again. Today we are going to have another sweet escape. We're going to travel back to England. That was my first overseas destination, one of my favorites. It also is very nostalgic to me because I had an English nana, spent many hours as a little girl hearing stories of England. So, and of course enjoying many English desserts at my nana's house. One of the most common desserts over in England, especially I was in London, was the Victoria sponge. It's a beautiful buttery sponge cake, and then of course it's most commonly layered with either a preserve or fresh strawberries, and of course real whipped cream. So we're going to make that today. It's just such a nice, easy, yummy dessert that can be served for tea, which of course is how the English would serve it, or good for any dessert for any special or sweet occasion. So let's get started. We're of course going to start with real butter. There's a little bit more butter in this particular recipe than there is in a normal, just kind of a vanilla or a butter-based cake that you would make. This is going to have a much spongier texture to it. It's also going to bake on a little higher heat. We're going to preheat our ovens to 400 degrees. Most commonly, we bake around 350 degrees. So get your ovens preheated. We're also going to start with some room temperature butter or some softened butter. You never want to use melted butter in a recipe for a cake, anywhere that you need to cream your butter and incorporate sugar, because you really need the right consistency. You need to be able to get the air in there. So if you are softening your butter in the microwave, which most of us do because quite often we're not thinking ahead or planning ahead to pull that pound of butter out of the fridge, if you happen to melt it, either use that for another recipe or, you know, get some more butter. We don't want to use melted butter. So I have 1 cup of softened butter. It's cool in my kitchen today, so we're going to see how this creams up for me. Again, I didn't want to melt it, so I was really careful. I'm going to just get this going. We're going to beat it. Want to get it nice and creamy. Then I'm going to incorporate my sugar. I really like this particular mixer I'm using because it has a wider bowl than most, you know, of the more popular mixers out there that we tend to use. So it really allows you to kind of get in and scrape the sides. It's great for home baking. So we've got that going. I am going to use 1 cup of sugar. Yeah, I'm peeking at my notes because I don't know all my recipes off the top of my head. So I'm just going to gradually add 1 cup of sugar in there. And we're just going to beat that until it's nice and fluffy, that sugar is incorporated. Then we're going to add our room temperature eggs. If you don't have room temperature eggs, because again, sometimes we just decide to bake at the last minute or on a whim, just take your cold eggs and run them under a little bit of warm water or put them in a cup with some warm water just for a minute. You don't want to cook them, so not really hot water, just to kind of take that edge off of them. I'm just going to turn this down just a little bit while I add my eggs. I do tend to like to add my eggs or by first cracking them into a measuring cup, just in case you have a bad egg. But today I'm just going to risk it and crack them right into my batter. There you go. So I'm just going to slowly kind of incorporate these. Want to get everything nice and mixed together. And then I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. And of course, you know, we want to see the texture of our batter start to change. You know, you'll see the glossiness from the eggs will start to incorporate, and everything will become fluffy and creamy and really change color. It should become kind of a lighter color because the air is in there. And again, just scrape your sides down. You want every little bit to get incorporated, or else you end up having a very unevenly baked cake with kind of you know, fluffier parts and parts where there's kind of too much butter in one area. So we don't want that. I'm just gonna help this along. I like to push the mixture towards the beaters just to make sure everything's getting incorporated. Again, that's why I like that nice wide bowl. I'm going to turn this off, and I want you to be able to see this nice consistency. It's fluffy, creamy, nice light color. So that's what we want. So now I'm going to add just a little splash of vanilla. You can measure it if you want, about a teaspoon, but I find vanilla is one of those things you can just kind of eyeball really if you want. I like to use pure vanilla. I know I say this all the time, but you know, when you're baking, the better the ingredients, the better tasting your dessert is always going to be. So now we're going to do 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and we're going to do 1 cup of flour. So as you can see, it's not a lot of flour in this. That's what gives it just that nice spongy texture. So I'm going to incorporate just about half of the flour. I've measured out a cup here, but I'm going to incorporate a half. And then I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of the baking powder. Then I'm going to add a little bit of milk. We have a 1/2 cup of milk going on in this recipe. I'm just going to get this all kind of mixed together. Then I'm going to add our remaining dry and wet ingredients. Again, this just helps to make sure that everything is evenly distributed so that you have a much nicer cake. So 1 more 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. I always like to keep a little cloth handy. I'm one of those people that likes to tidy as I go along. It seems a little less daunting at the very end. Maybe it's just because I'm OCD, I'm not sure. So now I have prepared an 8-inch pan. I don't bother flouring my pan. I just simply cut a nice ring of parchment paper. You don't want to use wax paper. Sometimes we get a little confused as to what's the difference between wax and parchment. Wax is just that, it's wax, so as it bakes in the oven, you're gonna get that kind of waxy residue in your pan and again in your baked goods. So you want parchment. It's a no stick, but it's not gonna leave that residue in there. So it's just, I just trace a little circle. I usually try to make many of those circles at a time because I know I like to bake and that way I have them handy. So, and it doesn't take long, you're just folding paper. So this is a single layer cake. You can of course double this if you want a larger cake. You can, if you do double the recipe, you could even make it more in a 9-inch pan. You can use a regular pan like I'm using, or use a spring form. You can even do it in a square. It's really up to you. You just want to watch your baking times. If you're kind of spreading the size of the cake out, it's obviously going to bake a little quicker. So you don't want to bake it for the same 30-minute time frame. So again, my oven is preheated to 400 degrees. We're going to bake this for about 30 minutes. You know it's done. Just like any other cake, you're gonna put a toothpick in, and when you pull it out, it should come out just nice and clean. So let's put this in the oven. I'm gonna get organized, and then I'm gonna show you how to put this beautiful Victoria sponge cake together.
Hey everybody, Ben Strasser here. Think Millennial, 9 p.m. Thursday nights. Join us on Rogers TV and our Facebook page. See you then.
Jean-Marie! Fire! The neighbor's farm is on fire. It's almost to the road. It's heading for us.
Help me get the animals out of the barn.
The fire's getting closer.
I'm on the horse.
The house is burning.
Get out to the river. Get up.
Can't leave everything. Careful! Don't fall.
Come on, we have to hurry.
I'm afraid. There's the river. We're going to make it. I can't swim.
Yes, you can.
Hurry! Hurry!
You must get in.
I can't.
Watch out for sparks.
His hair's on fire.
Keep their hair wet.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. One family, among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
Sponge cake has baked, it has cooled, I've relaxed and had a cup of tea while it was baking, and now I'm ready to assemble this beautiful Victoria sponge cake. The first time I had this beautiful cake, you know, called Victoria sponge, my Nana used to always make a lot of cakes with whipped cream and fruit, but she never called it Victoria sponge. The first time I ever had it was actually at Buckingham Palace. I did a tour of Buckingham Palace when I went to London, and after the tour you can go outside into the gardens, and they have this beautiful tea shop outdoors under tents all set up where you can have tea and enjoy beautiful English pastries and desserts. So who could resist having a gorgeous piece of layered white cake with, you know, fresh strawberries sitting on the terrace at Buckingham Palace? That was a really fun trip. I went with my mom and my sister. My daughter was over in the UK teaching for a year, so we went to go and make sure that she was all settled in. I think it was more just so, you know, her mother could make sure she was all settled in and well looked after, but we had a lovely vacation. So that is my memory of this cake. So I hope that you will create some beautiful memories enjoying this same dessert, hopefully one day, you know, on the grounds of Buckingham Palace. So I've got my cake, it's cooled. While I'm just getting things prepped to assemble, we're gonna make some fresh whipped cream. I think you'll find that there's a common thread between, you know, a lot of European desserts. One, it's always using really good quality ingredients. You know, you're not going to find a lot of artificial flavors or ingredients. Whipping cream, heavy cream is very common. You know, I think you'll find that I put this stuff on everything. So we don't need a full liter. So I'm just gonna kind of pour maybe about 3/4 of this. It's only a single layer cake, not that you can't have too much whipped cream. Again, if you're not used to making whipping cream and you wonder how to get that nice consistency, I always sweeten it with a little bit of icing sugar or confectioner sugar, which is that really nice fine sugar. It does have a little bit of cornstarch in it. So again, that's what's gonna kind of hold the body of the whipped cream, especially if you're trying to make this dessert the day before. Whipping cream will break down after a day or so. So you really want to make sure that you whip it to the right peaks and, you know, help it hold its body by having that little bit of cornstarch that's in the sugar. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon in there. This isn't an overly sweet cake, so it can really take a little bit of sweetening in the whipping cream. So you always want to just start off a little bit slow so it's not splattering all over you. I'm going to give that sugar a little bit of a push so it starts to incorporate. And of course, you always are scraping down the sides of your bowl when and if possible. Make sure everything's incorporated. Let's get this up to, I love all the settings on this mixer because, you know, it really, if you are a new baker or an uncertain baker, it actually tells you when you're beating, when you're whipping, when you're creaming something, as opposed to just kind of a 1, 2, 3 to maybe 5 speeds. Really is very nice. So I'll start with my strawberries. I've washed my strawberries ahead of time, so while the cake was in the oven, because you don't want wet strawberries while you're layering it in your cake. It's just, everything's just gonna kind of go mushy. So I'm just gonna get some strawberries because we're gonna wanna put some between the layers of the cake, and then on the top, if you want, you can leave them with the leaves on the top of the cake. That's totally fine, it's your preference. You can dice them, you can slice them, you can do it however you want. You can see that it's just, you know, all starting to come together. And we're almost at that, you know, kind of stiff peak stage. I'm just going to continue to scrape that just a little bit. So while that's continuing, I have this beautiful cake plate. I just love this. It was a wedding gift from friends of ours. It is an antique. So I think that will just, you know, be a beautiful setting for this gorgeous cake. I need my knife back. So when you put your cake in, obviously you've got the parchment paper underneath. And we're just gonna flip that over. Get rid of that. So the parchment paper came right off, which is nice. It's still just in the pan. And then I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna grab my knife. Put our cake up here. So you can do this 2 ways. You can keep it as a whole cake, you know, which will look very regal with whipped cream and berries on the top. Or you can slice it in half and make it more like a sandwich cake. To me, that's the more traditional way of doing it. This is almost done. So I'm gonna slice it. A lot of people are, again, nervous about slicing a cake. Again, unless the queen is coming over, you don't have to worry about it being, you know, exactly perfect, but you just gauge it. You just cut it. You can turn your plate a little bit if you need to. Just go slowly. See how, look at that beautiful yellow cake inside. Just fit perfect for a queen. It's just about done.
We're the generation that had it all. We're the generation that had the music and the moves. We're the generation that had a dream. We came together to feed the world's children. We came together to protect them. And in this dangerous world, we have to keep on saving them and protecting them, even when we're gone. If we remember UNICEF in our will, we'll be the generation who left a better world for children. Please visit uniceflegacy.ca.
I'm Shay Harold from Generation Z, here to talk about all things important to my generation. We'll talk about politics, healthy living, education, and all things important. Join me at 7:30 p.m. on Saturdays for Generation Z.
Linda Ockwell Jenner and Steve Bentley invite local entrepreneurs and small business experts to share their stories of success in small business. The Small Business Show, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Wow, that's quiet. When I get home from work and there's no whirls of ovens going and beaters going, I forget how quiet it is. And there we go. So we have our beautiful whipped cream. Yep. So I also have some jam. If you don't have fresh strawberries or you're making this cake when it's not strawberry season, you don't have to put berries in it. But I also like to put a little bit of jam. It does keep the cake really nice and moist. It just intensifies the flavor. I have just warmed this up a little bit. You don't want it hot, you don't want to boil it, but I just warmed it in the microwave for a few seconds. Just also helps it to spread. Use just a nice quality jam. You know, you can use it with, you know, chunks of strawberries in it if you want, doesn't really matter. You can use a seedless. Oh, there's nothing like the smell, I was just saying this, the smell of strawberry jam. I don't know if you ever made strawberry jam, but your house will never smell yummier. That sweet, sticky smell. Just permeates. There we go. So we've got our jam in there. And then let's layer this with a little bit of whipped cream. Fresh. So you can just, you don't have to have a fancy spatula or anything like that. You don't have to be a cake decorator. This, again, it's a very rustic cake. It can be definitely more regal, depending on how you want to decorate it. Of course, you know, the ones at Buckingham Palace were a little fancier than than this, made in my kitchen. But ultimately, the flavors are going to be the same. There we go. So let's get our strawberries. And this is where I do like to get a little more decorative. I like to put the tips of the strawberries coming out around the edges. Just makes for a much prettier design. These are nice strawberries. These are, I think these are Florida, because it's not strawberry season in Canada right now. I find the fruits all year round now are just as beautiful. Well, nothing beats a nice fresh Ontario strawberry, let's face it, but you can get some really nice juicy fruit. It used to seem that, you know, fruit was always kind of flavorless during the off seasons, but not so much now. And again, with this cake, it's a simple recipe. You can switch this up however you want. If you want a little bit of extra flavoring, you want to add some lemon or orange zest to the actual cake batter itself, you can. You could even incorporate a little bit into the cream. You can even brush your cake with a little bit of liqueur if you want. You know, it depends on who you're serving this to. Now, when I'm making a sandwich cake, I do like, you don't have to, but I like to bind it together. I like to put just a little bit of extra whipped cream, just gently over top. Just helps to hold the top layer of cake on as you're cutting it. Because when it's kind of an open type cake. You're not icing the sides of it. It's not bound together with buttercream like a traditional birthday cake. Then, of course, you want to make sure it's not sliding all over while you're cutting it. So then you're just going to put your beautiful little lid on there. Look how pretty that looks with the layer of jam, the whipped cream, and your strawberries. It's so pretty. So I've got a lot of spoons going on here. So just going to put some more whipped cream on the top. Another thing you can do is if you really want to get fancy, you can turn your whipped cream into a white chocolate mousse. So all you have to do is take a little bit of white chocolate, probably about 4 ounces, and a little bit of your whipped cream, and you can just slowly melt that in the microwave. You can certainly do it in a double boiler if you want to, but you're just really making kind of a ganache. So it's about, if you're doing 4 squares of white chocolate, you do about 2 ounces of the whipped cream. Just melt it enough so that you can see that it's starting to melt, and then stir it. Let that cool just a little bit, and then incorporate it into your whipping cream as you're whipping it. And it will just be beautiful. You can make a nice white chocolate mousse. So I'm just gonna finish that up. Gonna add a few beautiful strawberries to the top. I like to have the little green tops on it. I think it just makes it look like a little crown. There are some big strawberries here. I don't know what they're doing in Florida. There you go. So this is our beautiful Victoria sponge and strawberry cake. I certainly hope that you will take some time to indulge and treat yourself. Thank you for joining me on Sweet Occasions, our Sweet Escapes edition. We will see you again next time.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
What's with all this technology? Do you find it a little daunting to use or learn it? I'm going to help simplify things and remove the fears with step-by-step instructions for your computers, tablets, and smart devices. Technically Simple, every Monday at 4 p.m.
Hey everybody, Ben Strasser here. Think Millennial, 9 p.m. Thursday nights. Join us on Rogers TV and our Facebook page. See you then.
Whether it's in the kitchen,
Bibimbap.
bibimbap,
There you go.
I love it, or at the table,
Let's get rid of all of those cards. Keep 2.
Natasha McKenty serves up fun and interesting conversation.
It can really position you as an expert in your particular niche or industry.
Get details about upcoming events, the how-to on a new recipe, or discover a local author. In studio,
it's pink.
Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.